Hello, thank you for joining me today. My name is Gina Marie DePrima, and I'm your host. This is the Divorce with Heart and Conscious Co-Parenting podcast, where I like to share with you my perspective, view, and philosophy on how we can divorce differently and co-parent after separation differently, in a more positive way, in a more cooperative way, in a more harmonious way, not just for our own or each individual's own self-benefit, but for the benefit of each and every person around us and each and every person that we affect on a regular and daily basis, our mothers, our fathers, our brothers, our sisters, our children. This is generational. How we experience such difficult, emotionally trying experiences often shape our lives. How we respond to these things shape our lives. And I am a proud proponent of doing things different. This comes from my background on a personal level. My parents divorced when I was very young, and I'd have to say it was one of the nastiest divorces of the century. At least that's how it felt to me. It comes from my professional background as a lawyer, practicing in the area of divorce and family law and helping moms and dads figure out custody and parenting agreements and helping them to divorce in a more dignified way. But before we get into the meat of this episode, I want to make a request that if you like what you hear here, if anything seems to inspire you or trigger you or cause you to question things or see things in a different way and you appreciate it, I would really, really love it if you would just take a quick minute to go ahead and leave a rating or a review wherever you're listening, if it's in iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, because you know what? That's what makes this show discoverable, and that's what helps to spread the word. And I think only together, only with all of you, can we change the paradigm and change the dynamic and the conversation around divorce and co-parenting to something that's more positive, more uplifting, more balanced. So if you could do that, it would be great, and I would really appreciate it. Today, I want to dive in and share with you my opinion on how when co-parenting goes wrong, kind of the nasty way of co-parenting, how that not only has an immediate effect on our children, but has a generational effect, a multi-generational effect. And if for no other reason, that should be reason enough to change our ways, to spread the word, and to attempt and try to do something different. When I talk about conscious co-parenting, what I'm talking about is trying at every step and in every movement and every breath, trying to not let the emotional turmoil, the heartache, the pain, the animosity, the hurt feelings, the trauma, really, of what can come from a broken relationship, and not let that seep into our parenting relationship. Not let that seep into the way that we communicate with our co-parent or the other parent, and not let that seep into the way that we parent our children. It's about being aware of who we are, where we've come from, what we've been through, and yet making a conscious choice to not let the turmoil or the negative side of these experiences leave an imprint on our present and our future parenting of our children. Okay? You see, all too often, what I see is parents that go through the separation, and the level of hurt and pain that they feel is just so great that they can't put it behind them. They can't put it behind them. They can't process the feelings. They can't find forgiveness. They can't, for, I guess, lack of a better way of saying it, they can't get over it. And I don't mean it to sound that crass, but that's what it is. So when you have all of this pain and turmoil and suffering, sometimes what happens is that gets manipulated and, kind of shaken around in our bodies, and it comes out as blaming the other person, making the other person the villain, vilifying the other parent. This is what I see. And it comes from a level of hurt. It comes from a level of suffering. It comes from the level of heartache. And what happens is in that process of not being able to process the pain, that parent then starts to make the other parent the monster, the villain, vilifying that other parent. And, I think, truthfully, I do think that some people, I think, do this unknowingly, and they really try hard not to do this. Others, unfortunately, I will say, in the worst cases that I've seen, I think that they do it somewhat intentionally. Now, of course, those intentions are always masked with this whole idea of, well, I'm doing it to protect my child. I'm doing it because I love my child. I have to protect my child. But again, if you have to protect your child, in that very thought, aren't you saying you have to protect your child from, i.e., the other parent, the monster, the villain here? And that's really what I'm talking about. Being unable to process your own feelings, which then gets mixed up and confused and comes out as this blame and anger and constant sort of battle against the other parent. What this looks like, what I've seen, is that this is the kind of parent that is going to, share their every experience with their child. This is the kind of parent that doesn't think anything wrong of sitting down with, little Susie or Johnny and making sure that they understand exactly why mom and dad broke up, making sure that they understand that it was the other parent's fault, and making sure that they understand all the things that other parent did wrong, all the things that other parent did to break their heart, how that parent cheated on them, how that parent spent all their money, how that parent wants all their money. These are the things that I see in my practice every day. And it's sad when you talk with a child, and this child has really been, I think the psychological term, that the buzzword for it is parentified, because you see these are the parents that want their child to almost align with them. They use their child almost like an equal. And what I mean is they're not having conversations with their child that are appropriate for a child, but they're having the kind of conversations with their child that you would more likely expect them to be having with their girlfriend or their buddy, a friend, somebody like that. But instead, it's happening with their child. And these conversations are geared around this story. They're geared around this idea, this plan, this agenda, where the other parent is the villain, the bad guy, the bad girl. He was the one who was lazy. She was no good. She cheated on him. She broke his heart. Those are the stories that I'm talking about. They share their pain and their experience with their child. If they're not sharing their stories or sharing their plight and their version of events with their child, then they're doing it in other ways that maybe are less overt. They're doing it with their looks. They're doing it with their gestures. They're doing it with their silence at an exchange. This is maybe the parent who refuses to really look at the other parent when you're exchanging the kids. Even just, common courtesy. In fact, if you do a little comparison, you'd probably see from the child's eyes that this is a parent who's nicer to the, clerk at Walmart or wherever you are, nicer to the clerk at Target, nicer to a stranger, than they are to the other parent, more courteous. Now, does that mean that they like the stranger? No, they don't know the stranger. But what I'm talking about is a level of courtesies. That's what I'm talking about. Consideration, politeness. When there's the story going on where the other parent is the villain, you don't see that. You see the opposite. You see the gestures and the body language and the vibe that this person is wrong. This person can't be trusted. This person is not somebody to like. That's the vibe the parent gives off. This can look like anything that is sending a signal to the child that this other parent isn't meeting the satisfaction of the other parent. It's the signal of don't like them. Don't like them, I don't like them. Don't like them, they hurt me. Don't like them, they're a jerk. It's this underlying vibe, this underlying signal of that. Other ways that this shows up that I see a lot in my practice as well is what I saw in my personal life is the parent who never has anything nice to say about the other parent. This is the parent who is always speaking negatively about the other parent, really, and quite frankly, to anyone that'll listen. Anyone that will give them the time of day, they're going to hear a story. They're going to hear a mouthful about what an SOB the other parent is. Because again, everything that they're doing is sort of built around this story and this agenda, and that's what they're pushing. They're going to push it on coaches, teachers, friends, parents, anybody really that they can come in contact with. Unfortunately, it always gets back to the child. It always gets back to the kid. And where do you think that leaves the kid? Feeling happy and protected and loved? No, of course not. Feeling embarrassed, humiliated, stressed, anxious, hurt, upset? Absolutely. Absolutely. These kids who grow up when parents are at odds with each other grow up feeling like they can never fully express who they are. They can never fully show their own parents their whole heart. They can't do it. They can't do it out of fear of, doing something wrong, fear of betrayal, fear of guilt. These are kids that grow up learning that there's only so much they can say, only so much they can do when they're with one parent versus the other, etc. They grow up learning how to manage these kinds of parental relationships. And it's a lot. It's a lot of stress. And it's a lot of secrecy. And it creates a divide, I think, in the child himself. Because the child can't feel comfortable and safe loving both of their parents and showing it and expressing it freely without this looming sense of what's going to happen if I do? What's going to happen next? And I'll tell you, in my practice, I represent a lot of children. I've represented kids for almost 15 years. And the way that I see this the most is when I'm interviewing them. And I'm interviewing them and I'm asking them about things that they like to do with mom and the things that they like to do with dad. And you can see their facial expressions, their body language, their whole energy just changes. It changes in a way where you can see the doubt. You can see the fear where they're not really quite sure if it's safe, it's okay to say it. You can see that they've almost been programmed, maybe intentionally, maybe not sometimes, but into this way of thinking and this way of hiding and managing their emotions so that only showing pieces of themselves to certain people at certain times because they're not comfortable, because they fear what's going to happen. So all of this, again, I think comes from the hurt and pain, and it comes from this idea that parents are competing with each other for their kids' affection and love. It's like, okay, so the relationship has ended, you've separated, or you were married and you've divorced, And now for some reason you've got to prove yourself to be the better parent, the more worthy parent, the best parent, the one who gets the most love and affection. And it's wrong. It's wrong. It's completely misplaced. And I'll tell you what else. It never works. It never works. I have seen in my professional experience parents that have been so adversarial, so competitive with each other. No cooperation at all, no sense of decency, courtesy, any of that. And for a period of time, it might seem as though the kids may be more aligned with one parent over the other. But I will tell you, in every instance, it has backfired. It has backfired the most on the parent who is the one constantly bashing the other. It has backfired on the most on the parent who never created this environment for their kid to show that they were okay with the other parent, show that they were happy with the other parent, show that they loved the other parent, show that they were comfortable. That's who it backfires on. It backfires on that parent that tells those stories, that sets up that agenda, that talks to everybody that they can, as though it's their life mission to make the other parent a villain. It backfires. And it backfires in a huge way, in some of the worst circumstances I have seen. If you're experiencing this, or if this sounds any bit like you, please take caution and stop, because it's no way to do it. You may feel like you're ahead right now, that your kid is aligning with you and they're on your side and they're not liking the other, but it will backfire. And it'll be worse than you could have ever imagined. But I wanted to talk to you also, and more importantly, about how this failure to have this conscious co-parenting, failure to have this awareness, not only impacts children in the immediate sense in their lives, but it's multi-generational and can affect even grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and on and on and on it goes, because you're not just affecting your child's life during their childhood. You're affecting their life, their entire life, their childhood through their adulthood, and so on and so forth. You are affecting how your child is going to manage their own relationships. Again, are they going to allow their whole heart to open up? Or are they going to be stuck in this dilemma of this sort of sitting on a fence, one foot on one side, the other on the other side, always managing their feelings, only showing a piece of them, almost chameleon-like, because they're afraid, always afraid of the shoe to drop, always afraid of hurting, always afraid of the betrayal feeling, that looming sense of guilt. So you affect their relationships, who they pick as partners, how they live their lives, and it also then, again, will affect grandchildren, because it's this competitive nature that creates such a strong divide that not only the children grow up feeling like they have to pick a side and hide their feelings, the grandchildren who learn from their parents, who were the children, grow up feeling the same way. How does it look? Well, let me tell you, on a personal level, I've had this experience recently. I had a daughter. She wanted to have a birthday party. She wanted to have all of her grandparents there. Who wouldn't? That's wonderful. It's a wonderful idea. But you know what? Her grandparents are different sets of grandparents because of divorces and remarriages. And like I said, it wasn't such a pretty divorce. So that idea of let's have everybody there together, it sounds like a great grand idea, but it was hard. It was hard for her. It was hard for people there. You could sense the tension. You could sense all of the different emotions in the room. I don't want to get into all the details, but you know what? It wasn't good. And this happens for these kids, not just there. I mean, it happens all the time. Soccer games, they've got to be on guard. Who should they invite? Who's going to be there? What are they going to act like? They have to do this also, any time. They have to be aware of the family dynamic. Just as the kids do now, the grandchildren will have to later. And it creates this ongoing strain and unnecessary stress and anxiety. I just want you to think about it. Think about how you are parenting today And think about how your actions and your thoughts and how you feel about how you're parenting and the other person, how that is going to last. It's going to outlive you. It's going to outlive your children and probably your grandchildren. What you are doing today, what you're thinking, what you're feeling will carry on, and it will shape lives. It will shape your children's lives. It will shape your grandchildren's lives. So you need to just take some time to be aware of that. Be aware of your actions. Be aware of your choices. Be extremely mindful of the language you use and the way that you speak of the other parent. People say it all the time. I've seen these, little fancy quotes go across Facebook all the time about, when you're hurting the other parent, it's like sticking an arrow through your child's heart, things of that nature. But you really got to stop and think about that because it's true. It is literally true. When you say something negative about the other parent, you might as well imagine yourself saying that directly about your child, because that's the effect. That's the effect of it. So if you want to say that so-and-so is such an a-hole, SOB, whatever, fill in the blank. Take that person's name out of the equation and put in the name of your child and see how it feels. Does it still feel like the sentence fits? Because if the answer is no, then I'm going to suggest to you that you stop saying it, because that's the effect of it. Pure and simple. Pure and simple. And if you can't process those feelings, best advice I can give is to get a coach, get a counselor, somebody that you can talk to that is not your child, somebody that can help you to understand that it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to feel the pain and the heartache. It's okay. It's natural. You're supposed to feel that way. But as equally important is to somehow find the ability to process those emotions through you so you're not carrying them, so you're not ruining your own sense of self and ruining how you are interacting and impacting others. Something else to keep in mind is that you can look at your separation, or your divorce, the breakup, not as an ending, because it's really not just an ending. Something is ending, sure, but there's something else even bigger that's beginning. And that's the rest of your life in this new relationship as a co-parent. Parenting when apart. That's beginning. And that's huge. And that's lifelong. Certainly longer than the relationship to begin with. So consider that. How do you want to build on that for the future? Do you want this new beginning, this new future relationship to be built on shaky ground, based in competition, anger, fear, frustration, hatred even? Do you want it to be built on that? Because I'll tell you what, if you do, you're going to get nasty, nasty, nasty results. Nasty results for your kids, nasty results for yourself. You won't get happiness and you won't find peace. Do you want it to be built on something more solid, something more harmonious, cooperative? Because it's very possible. It's a mindset. It's a mindset. It's based in forgiveness, and it's based in peace, and it's based in forward-looking ideals. Knowing how you want to feel now and into the future. And you've got to keep that in the forefront of your mind. And think about different examples or instances and how do you want your kids to feel. What I like to give clients the example of is a high school graduation, or some other big moment in your child's life. Maybe they're performing on stage in the school band, or maybe it's a college graduation, or even take it further to their wedding. These big moments, where your child is likely to be a little nervous and that as it is, but how do you want them to feel when they're up there on the stage? Okay, or even if it's just a sporting event, I guess. How do you want them to feel when they're up there at bat? Do you want them to have that extra weight and stress of, oh no, my parents are here, my mom and my dad is here, What are they going to do? Do you want them to feel that? Do you want them to be stressed out because of that? Because not knowing how to handle the situation or what might happen or what embarrassing thing might come of it? Or do you want them to feel confident and happy and not even concerned or worried about the fact that you're both there? What feels most natural? What would you want if it were you? Keep those things in mind and hold that in the forefront of your mind. Always going back to, how do you want to feel? How do you want to feel today? How do you want to feel tomorrow? Because it's a choice. You can keep on working an agenda set up around competition and anger, etc., but you're going to feel that. You're going to feel miserable. You can work an agenda around forgiveness and compassion, appreciation, respect. It's going to feel better. It's going to feel better for you and for everybody around you. And you think the same way for your child. How do you want them to feel? How can you help them to feel that way? That's how you really share your love. That's how you really protect your children. It's by helping them to feel good, helping them to feel confident, helping them to feel like at all times it is more than okay to absolutely love unconditionally both parents, and to be able to show that freely, like sing it from the rooftops, because it shouldn't even matter. That's what you should want for your kids. And I really truly believe that everybody does on some level. Everybody wants that. But sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you just get stuck and you get caught up in the pain and the hurt feelings and the story of what happened and how you were wronged. And I know it's not always easy to put that aside. But if you can do it, the reward is more than worth it. More than worth it. The reward is a life of peace, happiness, harmony, happy children. So I hope I've inspired you today. I hope I've shared something with you to get you thinking. As always, if you have any questions or you have any concerns, I'd love to hear from you. You can send me a private email at ginamarie@deprimalaw.com. You can send me a message on Facebook at DePrima Law. Please feel free to do it, and know that in commenting, I can absolutely keep your name and information confidential. That will never be a problem. Just ask and let me know. I'd love to hear from you. In the next few episodes, I'm going to be opening it up to interviews. If you think you have a story to share, maybe you went through some nasty divorce and you're doing much better now, or you are co-parenting with great success, and you want to share this, especially the struggles that you've gone through and how you've overcome them, and you want to share your story so that you can help others, or if you were a child that experienced it kind of like I did, I can't wait for your voices to become a part of this show. And again, we can do it anonymously, but we can only spread this movement and create this movement to consciously co-parent and to divorce with heart if we all work together. Thank you for listening.